Greetings and salutations, this is Jason Silverain, and continuing my coverage of unusual RPG Maker games, I'll be taking a look at Cherry Tree High Comedy Club. Laugh and the world laughs with you. Now in my case it's usually get frustrated and the world laughs at you. Now this is certainly an unusual RPG Maker game, and the fact it looks nothing like an RPG Maker game. Developed by 773 and published by New Media. This was released in November 2012 and is available on Steam for £5.59. Rather expensive for an RPG Maker game, but it's kind of worth it, well certainly on a sale anyway. It boasts trading cards but no achievements, and has partial controller support, though it's so damn finicky to set up. I advise just using the keyboard. Now, just to go into it, there's not really much to it. In option-wise, you've got your message display speed, which is actually I'm really grateful for, especially since the game encourages you to do replays. The music has a very nice visual, bar to just let you know how loud it is, and same with the sound effects. You know me, I like both visual and numbers, but this is clear enough. Pretty simple, and as you can see, the effects are obvious. None of this quitting and saving malarkey until you get it just right. Now I'm just to get away from this horrible loop. Just a tad bit too short for my liking. I do generally like the music in the game. It usually is very atmospheric for the game itself. Laid back. The plot of the game is simply this. You are playing a comedy fanatic, really. The sort of the weird kid of the school who's quite friendly with most people. She really is into her comedy. And you want to start a comedy club. Unfortunately, you need at least 5 members. And this puts you on your own little mission to persuade various other students to join your club. Now, the game itself is a bit different in the fact there's no combat, and it's practically all dialogue based, and most of it's just running around and trying to pick the right options for topics which each person likes, and also learning a bit more about each of those topics to make your discussions a bit more effective. Not that you actually get to see any of the discussions. Now the game itself is, well, Now, taking a look at actual gameplay, I can show you what exactly I mean by this. Opening up my repertoire, you have various topics, all of which you can level up. Now, at the start of the game, traditionally, you'd only have maybe a rank in video games, whodunits, and travel. Because I'm on a New Game Plus, I get to keep all of the levels I've earned, and that makes it very handy, as a lot of the game is trial and error, which can be a problem if that's not your thing. Thankfully, it's very generous with telling you what your potential candidates, when you've unlocked them, like, and that does save between games. Or it seemed to in mine in my last playthrough. Now, other things I should explain on screen are these locations are actually just 2D planes. You can only move left or right. Enter is just to run back and forth, and also your talk button. So it's all pretty damn simple, and the only other button you need to use is X or Escape to bring up your menu. Now you may notice that these little arrows, you just press up on the keyboard and you instantly go into an area. So it's all done very concisely, and I can really agree with the design methods. And these green arrows will actually indicate which areas are going to use up time. Everywhere else you can just walk into for free. And the town one just goes to the overmap, which you can see is very nicely presented. It's all nice, bright and cheerful and clear, and there's plenty of areas to walk around, though in all honesty you'll soon get sick of running around these areas. They're very small and there's not that much to interact with. In fact, the only things you can really come across are these small glowing objects, which will usually be like on the screen or on the floor, and they can be one of three things. A discarded magazine, which can upgrade your topics or your repertoire. A empty bottle, which you can then trade in later when you have 10 of them for money, and it's a pitiful amount of money. It's only like 300, is it Zenny? I'm not sure what it just says, yeah. Just 300 of whatever the currency is in the game. And the last thing you can find is dog crap, which, as you might imagine, does nothing. Now, I'm just running around a bit aimlessly here, because I just wanted to show you the sort of design choices. And I should have really explained the other things on screen. Your calendar's pretty obvious, because there's a time limit for the game. It just brings it up to just show you how many days you have left in the month. Though it would be nice if it was circled in a way. And also the events page does actually give you the important dates you need to know. Homework is how many times you have to do homework. If you fail to do homework, you can get in quite a bit of trouble, and your fatigue builds up by doing certain actions, and you can lower it by simply resting or going to bed earlier, which lowers it, well, quicker. And recruit is how many people you've actually managed to recruit for your comedy club. Now, just as an example, let's read a magazine, and you can see I get a skill increase. Oh! I really did get a skill increase, that's very handy. And you get these nice little cutscenes between each section of the day, as the day is split into 3 sections. And the game is mostly consists of you running around talking to people. Each day is split into 3 sections, and that's essentially morning, afternoon and evening. And you'll do most of your activities during the afternoon on a school day, and on the weekend you've pretty much got the morning and afternoons to act on as well. Oh, very nice. Got a skill up. Just to display the nice little interface there. I mean, that's one thing I can really get behind the game, is its interface is very nice. However, it's not always had the best dialogue. When first released, it was released as a heavily westernized version, and it just didn't gel right. The best way to describe it is it was very similar to 4Kids dubbing. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with that, it's essentially the Americanization of all the names, which in this case had terrible pun names replacing the Japanese names. A lot of the traditional Japanese foods were taken out, and, well, I say taken out, they were renamed into things like burgers when it's obviously not a burger. Stuff like that. And it just didn't gel well when you're so obviously supposed to be in Japan, or somewhere that's based on Japan. For the majority of the game, however, it didn't really make much difference, and it just feels like something that was immensely pointless. So I'm really glad they released a non-westernized version, and every time you load up the game you can select which version you want to play, and even better is your saves will transfer between these versions. So if you really want to just see what each version's like, especially since the game sort of really pushes you to replay it, though to be no matter how much I like the game, however, I've got to acknowledge quite a few flaws. Upon original release, the game only came in a westernized version, and this mostly involved the renaming of the Japanese names into quite bad puns, to put it bluntly. Video game reference puns, or depending on the character really, but they were bad. Also, the level of the westernization was something akin to a 4Kids dub. For those of you unfamiliar with that, it's mostly the removal of any Japanese references, so Japanese foods are named into things like burgers and pizzas. Cultural things are also renamed, and it just felt very much out of place, very unnecessary, and it's something that I've never understood. Even when it occurs in anime, they just think, oh, our audience can't understand Japanese culture. If for some reason they can't understand the idea of a fried omelette. It's really insulting, in all honesty. Bit of a pet peeve. thankfully, the devs realised that from the feedback that quite a lot of people were kind of annoyed at this and didn't like it. So they released a unwesternised version, both of which are available, and whenever you start the game you can select which version you want to play and saves transfer between them. With no ill effect for it seems. So that's a big plus in my book. But the other thing that I must say niggles at me slightly is the small amount of music in the game and the long amount of loops. A lot of this music is maybe 30 seconds to a minute or two, and then it loops rather obviously. As you could tell with the intro and the menus, and after a while you kind of just phase it out. But again, it's not a good thing for the game. I do like the music, but it's rather calming and matches the game's mood, but the looping does get frustrating, especially when I was doing this damn recording. The amount of times where there's been an issue and I've had to cut something out and I'm like, that doesn't sound right. So it's doubly annoyed me. So that might be just the recorder in me speaking, but even when I'm playing, it does become noticeable and you get a little tired of things. But I definitely advise this one on a sale. If you enjoy a little bit of dialogue, you want something that's going to take you between 2.5 to 5 hours to play through the first time, and then you can just race through in sort of the second time and probably complete by the third, I advise this one. It's a fair 7 out of 10 in my book. But thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys next video.